Before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to a man who was a student in the band during Dry's initial transition to SMU. He was one of the legendary 8 upperclassmen who, along with the famous Fightin' 40 freshman recruited that year, formed the 1958 Mustang Band. Later on, he served as the assistant director of the band under Coach in 1961 before leaving SMU to take the reins of the South Oak Cliff High School Band. His name is Mr. Olin B. Butch Arnold, and he was there when history was being made. Butch, this is going to be fun. Thanks for helping us tell the story of those early years with Coach.
Thank you, Stan. I'm looking forward to it.
Also joining us today, the man who ascended to the directorship of the Mustang Band immediately after Dry's retirement, Mr. Bob Brandenberger. Bob, it is so appropriate that you're here with us for our program today on the band's history, since you were there for so many years and helped write the history of the band.
Well, we did have some wonderful years at SMU, and I can tell you this is really going to be a lot of fun.
Now to our honored guest, Dr. Irving Dreibrodt. We are absolutely delighted to have you with us to discuss the era of men at SMU. Dry, thanks a million for sharing your memories with us.
It's my pleasure, Stan, and they were truly era of a era, because nobody in the world had men like that to begin the job with.
It's been almost 25 years since your retirement from the band, Dry. As you look back on those years at SMU from the perspective of time, what thoughts come to mind?
Oh, there's so many, Stan. We'd be here till New Year's Eve just talking about all the thoughts. But they were all very pleasant thoughts. And the most important thing is I still miss the men.
Well, let's go back to the beginning, the very beginning. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? Where were you raised?
Well, I was born in San Antonio, Texas, and I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. And SMU tried to recruit me in 1938 to come to SMU. Well, there's a man at Baylor University who needed a drum major, and he gave me more money than Mr. Malone could give me to come to SMU. So I had to go to Baylor. So I served 4 years there at Baylor, and then always looked forward to coming to SMU in my life.
Tell us about your family. Tell us about your immediate family growing up there in San Antonio.
Well, my mother's father was a farmer. My daddy's farmer was a farmer. And my brother grew up with me as a half-brother. My father divorced early in life. And my brother was a half-brother and became a surgeon. I became an internist. Got killed in an automobile accident at age 43. God bless his soul. And he was such a good doctor, but things happened. And then I just kept on my life and just kept battling, taking clarinet lessons and so forth, and playing in them all state bands and all national bands, and paying money for this and paying money for that. And then when I went to college, then life began right there. Other than that, I had a normal relationship as a youngster. I wanted to play football, want to play all those things. My mother says, I'm not spending this money for music for you to play football. Now she didn't realize what a mistake she made. Of course, I'd probably been the most outstanding halfback and all. But that was basic it. Then in college, had a real good deal. I was 1 year at Baylor University as a director of bands when I enlisted in the Air Force, like I told you. And all the things in life took a deal. I had a great family. I had 3 girls. Then my second marriage was to Beverly. I think you all knew Beverly. And she had a 5-year-old daughter, and I adopted her, and she's been a delight. And the kids have all taken her over, all 3 daughters. They drop her in a sack or pillowcase and throw her out the window when she's 5 years of age. Says, now earn your keep in this house.
How did you first get involved in music? Where did the musical history from your perspective really begin?
I heard a saxophone player one day, and I told my mother that's what I want to play. So they bought me a saxophone. I remembered exactly, it was $27. And that's a little cheap saxophone in 1930. Well, let's see, I was 5 years of age, so 1925. I started playing saxophone, and when I was 7 years of age, they had a deal in the theaters at that time on Saturday. It was called Junior Achievement Week. And I played up that lazy river, up that lazy stream, and I won $50, and I thought I won $1 million at 7 years of age. That was $1 million.
That was a lot of money.
It was a lot of money.
What was your college experience like?
It's a lot of work because the man turned over the marching band to me as a freshman. And a freshman in any college band is not going to be treated with welcome, you know, and have those upperclassmen, when you say the word fall in, was not a pleasant greeting at the old bear camp. But we worked it out, and I enjoyed Baylor. It's a good school. They had a good concert band and a good director, and I learned a good bit from them. Got to play in the Baylor Symphony, which is the big Waco Symphony at that time, and a good experience. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And then, of course, I had to go to the service. That spring, war was declared December the 7th, and when I was graduating in the spring, Uncle Sam told me, first day you're out of college, in the service you go. That's what happened. I went to the service first day I got out of college, went to the United States Air Force.
So you finished your undergraduate degree at Baylor
Finished my undergraduate
at the outbreak of the war.
Correct.
You know, Dry, you were part of what Tom Brokaw called the greatest generation. Where did you serve during World War II?
Well, I served in the United States in the Air Force bands for a while. Then I got a notion that I'd like to serve with one of the big bands, and the Glenn Miller Band was being replaced in England. And so I applied for it. I was going to be there. But before that time, I had gone to San Marcos, Texas, and I had a Glenn Miller Band established. I was fortunate enough to have Glenn Miller as arranger in the band there. So we formed a Glenn Miller Band.
You talking about Jerry Gray?
One of Jerry Gray's assistants. He was the other assistant to Glenn Miller. And he was a great writer, and we had a good playing band. So I enjoyed that. But then I tied in with the band leader one day, and he was a shoe salesman. Was a big band leader, so we didn't agree too well. I applied to be transferred and got sent to Mengon, Quebec, the pride of the North. Me, the Eskimos, the walruses, the whales, and big old me. And there I spent 3 years before I got out of the service in 1945.
3 years in Quebec.
Mengon, Quebec.
Your high school directing experience was at Brackenridge High School in San Antonio. Was that your only pre-college teaching experience?
No, right after the service, I taught at Corpus Christi in junior high school because you couldn't get a job hardly after the service when you came out of the service. I taught there for 6 months, and then I got the job at the old high school that I graduated from, Brackenridge High School in San Antonio. I stayed there 13 years. At the same time, Trinity University band job opened up in 1951. But I was happy at Brackenridge, so they talked me into coming at 3 o'clock in the afternoon after I got out of high school and handling the Trinity band same time. So I had 2 bands for 5 years going concurrently through football season, and it was a trial.
That must have been pretty challenging trying to do 2
It
bands
was a
at once.
trial, but it was fun. I learned a lot. Trinity's grown to be a great university, San Antonio.
It has. A man that was instrumental to the success of the Mustang Band during your years on the hilltop was arranger Doug Williamson. When did you first meet Doug?
I met Doug in San Antonio, who was director of the Trinity University Band while I was at high school. And he took a high school band job. But he'd come over to my house every Saturday afternoon and visit. And I talked him into doing my arranging for me at the high school band, because we were trying to play some jazz at this time. And Doug had perfect pitch. I'd give Doug a pencil and a bottle of beer, and he'd have a whole arrangement made for me before 6 o'clock in the afternoon, transcribed for the band, parts written and all. He was a great arranger, and is still a great arranger. He still resides in San Antonio.
As I recall, you were able to make good use of Doug during band contests.
Well, we were fortunate. We had some good kids, and we just had some kids want to win.
I understand that he was able to to actually listen through the door at sight reading contests sometimes that would give you a little edge going in.
Well, that was a little kind of a key in sight reading that the band leaders learned early. We'd have a band leader listen to sight reading, and if you had perfect pitch, he'd say, well, now the first movement's an A flat. Now she's going to transpire to C, then it's going to go to E flat. So you prepared your band ahead of time in those keys to be transferred to them, so it wouldn't be a big change to them. And it was an advantage to have that going into sight reading.
Absolutely. Dry, you've been very active in the Texas Bandmasters Association throughout all of your years in the band business. Take us through the formation of that organization and how TBA influenced your career.
Texas Bandmasters were formed in San Antonio in 1947. Band director named, excuse me, Pat Archer was at Alamo Heights and was a dear friend of mine. And he talked to me, he said, come on, let's get this thing started. It's going to be a new music clinic. At that time, we didn't have disc or anything in nature to hear music. We just had to read the scores and take it from there. This way we could have the band arrangements played for the band leaders prior to going back to school. So we started the new music band deal, and we had a new music deal for marching bands. But since this was July, it got a little hot for those kids marching out there in July. So we did away with the marching deal and concentrated on the new music clinic. And now it's transferred from the first year from 125 band leaders to 3,200 band leaders in the state of Texas. And Pat Archer and I developed the thing. Pat did it all at high schools, and when I became president, I moved it down to the hotels where we could entertain the women and the children and bring the whole family into the band association.
And there were others that were involved in the formation of TBA. Anybody come to mind?
Well, Bob Brandberger was one of the presidents of Texas Bandmasters and made a good one. And other people that are ex-students of mine became presidents, and they carried on the thing and brought ideas into the association. It's phenomenal that it became the world's largest band directors movement, and it's still copied worldwide, not only United States wide, but worldwide.